My husband is known throughout the neighborhood as a truly kind man. Every month, as soon as his paycheck arrives, he transfers the entire amount to a charity. All household expenses fall solely on me. It's 9:30 p.m. when I finally get home from work. I open the door and immediately feel a pile of envelopes at my feet. Bank notifications, utility bills, a mortgage reminder, a medical bill, and a credit card statement from Daniel's premium card. I set my bag down, crouch, and start picking them up one by one. I don't open them right away, because I already know what's inside. Each one will say the same thing. This household needs money, and Daniel's money will never stay in this home. I sit at the dining table and spread the bills out. Mortgage, 800 utilities and gas, 690 car loan, 100 insurance, 820 Grace's medication, 300 restaurant and hotel charges on Daniel's credit card, 600. I stare at the numbers. My stomach tightens. I pull out my phone and check my bank balance. 482. I stare at the number for a long time. 482. That's what's left after working 26 days this month, putting in overtime until late at night. I'm an interior designer. To outsiders, I seem well off, living in a clean, beautiful neighborhood, married to a high-earning husband, owning a house with a lawn. But that's just the version people see. The real version is this. I pay the mortgage. I pay the insurance. I cover all living expenses. I pay for Daniel's mother's medicine. Daniel Carter, the man who works as a senior consultant at a tech company and earns $32,000 a month, transfers every single dollar of his paycheck to the Hope Harbor Foundation the same day it arrives. It's a charity. They claim to help homeless children, ill single mothers, and veterans. Daniel says they need the money more than we do. I used to believe him. I even felt proud of him. When we first got married, he told me for the first time that he wanted to donate most of his income. He sat in our unfurnished living room, holding my hand, looking deeply into my eyes. Ava, I know this sounds crazy, but I've seen too many people suffer as a child. I don't want to live only for myself. I was 29 then. I'd just lost my mother. I so desperately wanted to believe there was still genuine kindness in this world. So I nodded. I said, I support you. Now, looking back, that wasn't support. It was me handing him the knife myself. At 10:15 p.m., Daniel comes home. He's wearing a dark gray suit, his tie slightly loosened, a gentle but exhausted smile on his face. That same smile I've seen countless times. Neighbors love it. Grace loves it. Cameras at charity galas love it. He sees the pile of bills on the table. His steps pause for a second. Then he suddenly acts as if nothing's wrong, leans over and kisses my forehead. Still awake, I look up at him. Did your paycheck arrive this month? Daniel pauses in the middle of taking off his jacket just for a second. Then he hangs it on the chair. Yeah, it did. Where is the money? He sits down, calm. I transferred it to Hope Harbor. I hear myself inhale, this time not out of surprise, but because I'm barely holding on. Everything. Yes, Daniel. The mortgage hasn't been paid yet. I know. Grace's medical bills haven't been paid either. I know. You know. I looked at him. Then why did you transfer all $32,000? Daniel frowned, as if I'd asked a trivial question. Ava, they have an emergency project this month. Some children need temporary shelter. Olivia called Mesh was really desperate. Olivia, that name pricked my skin like a needle. Olivia Blake, director of the Hope Harbor Foundation. Elegant, graceful, speaking softly, always in beige or white suits. Every time she saw Daniel, she embraced him. She'd say, Daniel, without you, we really wouldn't make it. And her eyes would always be moist. I used to think she was sincere. Then I learned, some women's tears aren't weakness, they're weapons. I pushed the mortgage reminder toward him. What about us? Doesn't this home need help? Daniel glanced at the bill, then at me. His eyes held disappointment, light but clear. Ava, we can't just focus on ourselves. I let out a dry laugh. I'm not just looking at myself. I've been looking out for this home for 3 years. I paid your mother's medicine. I helped you pay off your car. Every month you wear your dry clean suit to donate money you're not even paying for the dry cleaning yourself. Daniel's expression darkened. Ava, you're speaking very harshly now. The harshness is in the bills, not in me. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. You're under so much stress lately. Let's not fight now. He always said that. Every time I asked about money, he said I was stressed. Every time I broke down, he told me I needed rest. Every time I asked him to take on more family responsibility, he said I'd become too practical. I used to doubt myself. I'd wonder if I was too cold. Maybe Daniel really was helping others. Maybe a good person always needs someone to support them. But that night, I wasn't convinced anymore. I slammed the credit card statement onto the table. What about these hotel charges? Daniel glanced at it. His face didn't change. Charity meetings. Are there charity meetings every month? All at luxury hotels. The foundation needs to meet donors. You're not a donor or an employee. He fell silent. I stared at him. It was the first time in 3 years of marriage he didn't answer immediately. The air grew still. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. And then I realized something. Daniel wasn't incapable of lying. He simply assumed I'd never ask. Finally, he stood. I'm exhausted. There's a charity event at the community center tomorrow. I don't want to argue tonight. I'm tired too. He looked at me, voice softening. Ava, I know you're struggling. I really do. But we have to do something bigger than ourselves. I asked him. Then what am I? Daniel didn't understand. I repeated it. In your bigger mission, what am I? He didn't answer. He walked into the bathroom and shut the door. The sound of water started soon after. I sat alone at the table, staring at the bills. And suddenly, I understood one thing. In Daniel's life story, he was the hero. The people he helped were his proof. The neighbors were his audience. Olivia was his ally. And me, I was just the one paying for the lights and the stage. The next morning, Grace Carter called me. I had just walked into the office. Coffee still untouched. Her voice came through the phone soft, slow, just like everyone pictured a good mother. Ava, Daniel was really upset last night. I closed my eyes. Grace always did this. She never asked whether I was suffering. She only told me Daniel was suffering. Did he say anything to you? Just a little. Grace sighed. He's such a sensitive soul. He can't bear to see others suffer. You've been with him for so long, you should know that better than anyone. I held the phone, staring out at the window of my office. Traffic flowed quickly beneath the building. Everyone had their own direction. Only me, trapped in a room with no visible walls. Grace continued. You don't have children. Your expenses are already so much lower than others. Daniel's willingness to give his money to those in need, that's a blessing. When I heard the words no children, my chest chilled. She always knew exactly how to strike. Daniel and I had been married for 3 years, with no children. Not that I didn't want them. Daniel said he wasn't ready yet, but in Grace's mouth, that became a reason for me to cut back on spending and stay silent. I said, Grace, the mortgage won't disappear just because Daniel is kind. There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice cooled slightly. Ava, marriage isn't about accounting. Women who fixate on money drive men away. I laughed. So her husband hands over all his paycheck and leaves her to pay the bills. This isn't fixating. Grace replied. You're not yourself today. Talk to me when you're calmer. She hung up. I stared at the phone screen. Once, after every call with Grace, I'd feel terrible, like I wasn't good enough, not gentle enough, not understanding enough of Daniel, not worthy of this kind man. But that day, I only felt absurd. They were a complete system. Daniel handled virtue, Grace handled my guilt, and I handled the payments. At 5 p.m., my boss informed me a new client needed a proposal updated over the weekend. I didn't refuse. I couldn't. I needed money. At 7 p.m., I hurried back to attend a charity event in the neighborhood organized by Daniel. It was held in the backyard of our neighbor Brown's house. String lights glowed warm yellow across the lawn. Long tables were set with wine, fruits, and small pastries. Kids darted around, and adults held cups, chatting. I had just stepped inside when I overheard someone talking about Daniel. Does he really donate his entire salary every month? Yeah, Olivia told me. It's incredible. Who does that now? That's why I say, Ava's really lucky. I froze in place. Daniel stood at the center of the crowd, wearing a white shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled up, approachable, clean. Everyone surrounded him. He didn't boast, just smiled quietly, saying occasionally, I'm just doing what I should. The crowd melted even more. I watched, suddenly amused. Last night, I had been calculating how to make it through the week. And tonight, he was being hailed once again as a saint. Neighbor Linda spotted me and came over immediately. Ava, you're here. I nodded. She took my hand, her eyes sincere. You know, I really admire you. Not every wife can support her husband doing something like this. I wanted to pull my hand back, but I didn't. I asked her, what do you admire about me? Linda froze for a second. Of course, I admire you for supporting Daniel's donation. I smiled. Do you know who pays our bills? Her smile froze on her face. I didn't say more, because Daniel had already looked over. His gaze was light, yet carried a warning. At that moment, I suddenly understood wasn't afraid of me being hurt. He was afraid of me speaking about that pain in front of an audience. Just then, a soft stir came from the backyard entrance. Olivia Blake had arrived. She wore a white dress, her hair pulled back neatly, holding a small bouquet of blue flowers. She didn't look like a charity director, more like the kind of woman everyone in a movie would believe without question. Daniel, the moment she saw him, she stepped forward quickly and wrapped her arms around him. The embrace lasted 3 seconds too long. At least, it was too long for a married man. Daniel didn't push her away. His hand rested lightly on her back. I stood at a distance, watching them. Olivia looked up, eyes slightly red. This afternoon, we had those 3 children. Daniel, without you, I truly don't know what I would have done. A soft murmur rippled through the onlookers. Daniel spoke gently. You did a great job, Olivia. She shook her head. No. It was you who saved them. They stared at each other. Those eyes didn't belong to colleagues, nor to a donor and a director. They looked like 2 people who shared a secret. Finally, Olivia turned to me. Ava, you're here too. Her smile was gentle, but her eyes were cold. I nodded. This is my husband's initiative. Of course I'd come. She seemed not to catch the tone in my voice and came forward, taking my hand. You're truly remarkable. Many wives wouldn't understand such dedication. I looked at her hand. Her nails were perfectly manicured, and a diamond bracelet rested on her wrist. I'd seen that bracelet before. On last month's credit card statement, there was a jewelry purchase 9,800. Daniel said it was a donation at a charity auction. Now, that donation was on Olivia's wrist. I looked up at her. That bracelet is beautiful. Olivia's smile faltered briefly. She instinctively pulled her hand back. Daniel stepped in immediately. Ava. Linda's looking for you. She wants to ask about the kitchen renovation. He was diverting me. I looked at him. Is that so? His voice dropped lower. Don't embarrass anyone. I almost laughed. Embarrassment. So the worst part wasn't that he'd moved the money. Wasn't that I was drowning under bills. Wasn't that the diamond bracelet on Olivia's wrist had been bought with his credit card. It was that I might embarrass him. I said nothing else. I went to the table and took a glass of wine. That night, Daniel gave a brief speech, standing beneath the string lights. His voice soft and warm. We live in a safe neighborhood, in warm homes, with clean food, but so many others don't. Hope Harbor exists to remind us that kindness should never stay just words. Applause rose. I watched him. His eyes were bright when he spoke those words. If I weren't his wife, I might have believed him too. That was Daniel's greatest danger. Wasn't a crude fraud. He's the kind of man who can make a lie sound like faith. When the party ended, Olivia walked up to me. Daniel was talking to a few neighbors a short distance away. She stood close, her perfume faint, but it made me uncomfortable. Ava, you look exhausted. I am exhausted, I said. She gave a soft laugh. Supporting a great man isn't easy. I turned to look at her. Do you know what that feels like? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I know, Daniel. Men like him shouldn't be held down by ordinary life. Ordinary life, mortgages, bills, marriage, a wife. In her voice, all of it sounded like chains binding Daniel. What then should he be trapped by? She looked toward Daniel. Destiny. I set down my glass. You two really talk alike. She finally looked at me. In that instant, her gentle expression cracked just slightly. Brief, but I saw it. On the way home, Daniel drove. I sat in the passenger seat. The car was silent. After a few blocks, he spoke. You almost humiliated Olivia tonight. I looked out the window. I just said her bracelet was pretty. You know that's not what you meant. I turned to him. Then do you know what I meant? His hand tightened on the steering wheel. Ava, don't turn everything into an attack. Who bought it? What? The bracelet. He didn't answer. I stared at his profile. The streetlight swept across his face in pulses. Suddenly, he felt alien to men. It just today. But finally, I admitted he'd always been alien. After we got home, Daniel went straight upstairs to shower. I stood in the entryway, staring at the suit jacket he'd taken off. It hung on the back of a chair, the pocket slightly puffed. I knew it wasn't proper to snoop in a partner's pocket, but in that moment, I didn't care about propriety. Propriety was for people who were both honest. I stepped closer and reached into the pocket. There was a parking ticket. The paper was thin, edges slightly crumpled. The location read, Bridgeport Coast Private Residence Parking. Time, 11:48 p.m. last night. Last night at 11:48. Daniel said had been sorting donation records at the charity office. I stood in the living room, holding the ticket. My heartbeat was slow, so slow I could hear blood pounding in my ears. I opened my phone map and typed in the address. Bridgeport Coast, a seaside villa district, 40 minutes from our home. No charity office there, no temporary shelter, only expensive private residences. The sound of water upstairs stopped. I quickly snapped a photo of the ticket and slipped it back. When Daniel came downstairs, I was already seated on the couch. He glanced at me. You're not going to bed yet? I'm waiting, I said. I have some work emails. He didn't suspect a thing. He went back upstairs. At 11:30 p.m., his steady breathing echoed from the bedroom. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. No tears. Crying had become useless that night. At 12:05 a.m., I quietly got out of bed, picked up my car keys and phone, and drove away. The roads at night were empty. I drove straight toward Bridgeport Coast. The sea wind grew heavier. The houses on either side grew larger, the lights farther away. I parked my car around a corner and walked into the private residential area. Each villa was silent, as if no one lived there. But I soon spotted Daniel's car, black Mercedes, license plate ending in 417. I couldn't mistake it. It was parked in front of a white villa, the car illuminated brightly by the garden lamps. I stood in the shadows of the trees, palms wet with sweat. I told myself maybe he was just here for a meeting. Maybe there really was a donor. Maybe everything could still be explained. At that moment, the villa door opened. Olivia Blake appeared on the threshold, wearing a light gray dressing gown, her hair loose over her shoulders. No makeup, but she looked more relaxed than she had at the dinner party, more like the true mistress of the house. She glanced back and smiled. Then Daniel stepped out. He wasn't in a suit. He wore a deep blue pajama top, cradling a little girl, about 3 or 4 years old. Her golden hair was pressed against his shoulder, eyes half closed from sleep. Daniel gently kissed her forehead. She murmured, "Daddy. Don't go." Time stopped. The sea wind fell silent. Leaves ceased rustling. My breath vanished. Daniel softly patted the child's back. "Daddy will come back tomorrow." Olivia leaned against the doorway, watching them. That was not the look of a charity partner. That was the gaze of a woman watching her husband and child. I stood in the darkness. My phone camera pointed straight at them. My hands trembled so much I could barely hold it. I pressed record. On the screen, Daniel held the little girl. Olivia reached up, adjusting his collar. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed him. Daniel didn't pull away. I watched them kiss without rushing out, without screaming, without shedding a single tear. Because in that moment I suddenly understood. The real destruction isn't witnessing betrayal. It's realizing that all the pain you've endured, every sleepless night, every doubt, every broken heart was carefully orchestrated. Daniel turned toward his car. I quickly stepped back behind the tree. He didn't see me. The headlights flashed on. The black Mercedes slowly pulled away from the villa. I stayed rooted to the spot until Olivia closed the door and the house fell silent on. See more. I lowered my phone. The video was still recording. The image was clear. The sound was crystal. The girl's whisper "Daddy" was unmistakable. I pressed save. Then I received a text from Daniel. "Are you sleeping? There's a last-minute charity meeting tonight. I might be late coming back." I stared at those words and slowly smiled. At the same time, a light flickered on the second floor of the villa. The curtains weren't fully closed. I looked up. Olivia stood by the window, staring directly at me. We faced each other across the lawn, her on the second floor, me in the tree shadows. She couldn't see my face, but I knew she saw me, because she didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't panic. She simply stood there quiet, still, like a woman who had been waiting for this moment all along. After a few seconds, she raised her hand and slowly drew the curtain shut. The gesture was gentle, yet it felt like a hand closing over my throat. I turned and walked away. Each step sent a chill through my body. I didn't drive after Daniel. I didn't call him. I didn't storm into the villa to confront Olivia. That kind of reaction would only make me look like a woman losing control. And that's exactly what they wanted me to be. They wanted me to cry, to scream, to break things, to become a joke. I won't give them the chance. I got back into the car, uploaded the video to the cloud, and sent a copy to my backup email. Then I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers regained sensation. At 1:30 a.m., I arrived home. Daniel hadn't come back yet. I took off my coat and sat on the living room sofa. The house was pitch black. The bills were still scattered on the dining table. I stared at them, and suddenly I felt like a fool. For 3 years, I had worked myself to the bone for this family. I gave up vacations to pay the mortgage. I skipped checkups to afford Grace's medication. To save money, I turned down the heating in winter and couldn't afford to run the air conditioning too long in summer. And Daniel transferred 32,000 of his salary, drove to a seaside villa, held another child in his arms, and kissed another woman. What's most disgusting is that he made everyone praise him for being so kind. At 2:07 a.m., the door lock clicked. I didn't turn on the light. Daniel stepped inside and stopped in the entryway. "Ava," I said calmly, sitting in the dark. "You're back." He jumped slightly. Then he turned on the light. He saw me on the sofa and frowned. "Why aren't you asleep?" I looked at him. His hair was slightly disheveled from the sea breeze. There was a faint smudge of lipstick on his lips. In the past, I might have asked. Not anymore. Asking questions only gives a liar more practice crafting answers. I said, "I've been waiting for you." Daniel placed his keys on the cabinet. "Didn't I tell you? There was a last-minute charity meeting. So late." "Yeah, something came up with Olivia." I nodded. "How are the kids?" His eyes flickered very briefly, but I caught it. "What kids?" I asked, staring at him. "You said the foundation had kids to arrange, didn't you?" He relaxed. "Oh, right. It's all taken care of." I didn't ask further. Daniel stared at me for several seconds, maybe deciding whether I knew something. My face remained expressionless. Finally, he walked over and leaned in to kiss me. I turned my head away. His movement halted. "Ava, I'm exhausted," I said, standing up. "I have to work tomorrow." I went upstairs, into the bedroom, and shut the door. Daniel didn't follow. I heard him downstairs pouring a glass of water. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my laptop, and accessed our joint account. Daniel's monthly transfer records were all there. For the past 3 years, every first of the month. 32,000. Recipient, Hope Harbor Foundation. 36 months. Total, 1.15 million. I stared at that number. Over $1 million. Money that could pay off a mortgage, fund an investment, raise children, treat a parent's illness, and allow 2 people to live in peace. And in Daniel's mouth, it was all framed as kindness. I opened the official website of Hope Harbor Foundation. The site was beautiful smiling children, volunteers hugging one another, Clean blue and white colors. The website claimed transparency, responsibility, love. I clicked on the annual public report. The numbers were simple. Daniel Carter, listed as an individual donor, donated 12,000 monthly. I froze. I reread it. 12,000, not 32,000. I opened the bank statements. 32,000 transferred out each month. I opened the foundation's report again. Only 12,000 recorded as donations. $2,000 missing every month. 20,000 each month. 3 years. $72,000. This isn't infidelity. This is theft. I photographed every record, copied the files, and saved them in 3 separate places. At 6 a.m. I heard Daniel come upstairs. I quickly closed the page and lay back down in bed. He opened the door. I kept my eyes shut. He stood in the doorway for a moment, then stepped into the bathroom. The sound of running water started. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. From that moment on, I would no longer believe a single word he said. At 8 a.m. I didn't go to work. I messaged my boss, saying I wasn't feeling well and would work remotely. Then I began researching Olivia Blake. Her background was pristine, graduated from a top university, 10 years in nonprofit work, honored by the city government. In interviews, she always said she had experienced poverty as a child and wanted to help others. I watched 3 interview videos. Each one felt rehearsed expressions, pauses, tears, smiles, all too perfect, unsettlingly flawless. Then I searched for negative news about Hope Harbor Foundation. Most of the results were unremarkable, but one article from 3 years ago caught my eye. The goodwill behind Hope Harbor. Donations disappear without a trace. By Ryan Brooks. I clicked on it. The page said, article deleted, but the search results still displayed a brief excerpt. Multiple internal staff questioned Hope Harbor Foundation's financial transparency. Some donations may have flowed into affiliated companies. I immediately searched Ryan Brooks. He was now a freelance investigative journalist with a personal website and a public email address. I sent him a short message. I'm Daniel Carter's wife. Daniel transfers 32,000 monthly to Hope Harbor Foundation, but the public reports only show 12,000. I have bank records. Are you willing to talk? After sending it, I sat at my desk waiting. 10 minutes, 20, an hour. No reply. Just as I was about to shut down the computer, my email pinged. Ryan had replied, don't use this email again. Meet me at West Elm Cafe at 2 p.m. Sit at the second table by the window. Don't tell anyone. I read those words. My heartbeat accelerated for the first time, not from fear, but because ID finally found a crack. At 2 p.m. sharp, I arrived at West Elm Cafe, a plain coffee shop not far from downtown. I sat at the second table by the window. 10 minutes later, a man in his 30s walked in wearing a black jacket, carrying an old laptop bag, with a hint of stubble on his chin. He didn't look at me immediately. He ordered a black coffee, then came over and sat down. Ava Miller. I nodded. Ryan Brooks. He glanced out the window. You shouldn't have looked into Hope Harbor alone. Why? Because they're not just some small charity. I pushed my phone toward him. The screen showed Daniel's transfer records and the foundation's public financial reports. After scanning them, Ryan's expression didn't change. No surprise. That unnerved me even more. You already knew? I asked. I knew their books were off, but I lacked direct proof. Why was your article deleted? He looked up at me. Because I wasn't smart enough at the time. I trusted an internal employee. She promised to give me the full file. But the day before the interview, she changed her mind. Then my editor received a legal notice. The website was threatened. The article was pulled. And I lost my full-time job. Who was the insider? Ryan paused. Hannah Lewis. She used to be the financial assistant at Hope Harbor. I wrote down the name. Ryan continued. Olivia Blake isn't the kind of woman you see on the surface. She's good at packaging herself, and she's great at finding protectors. There's always some man willing to speak up for her. I asked, is Daniel one of them? Ryan looked at me. You're his wife, you should know better than I do. I wasn't stung by the words, because they were true. I turned on the video from last night and pushed it toward him. After watching it, Ryan showed a rare expression for the first time. He frowned. Who's the child? I don't know. Your husband. She calls him daddy. Ryan handed the phone back. This could be useful, but it's not enough. What else do I need? The money trail. You have to prove where those $20,000 went. Otherwise, they'll claim it was management fees, project advances, misrecorded expenses, any excuse they can come up with. How can I find that out? Start with your husband. Check tax returns, credit cards, company reimbursements, property ownership, insurance policies, and don't let him know you've figured it out. I said. It's too late. Ryan looked at me. What do you mean? Olivia saw me last night. His face changed. Then you'd better move fast. I asked. What will she do? Ryan took a sip of coffee. She'll first confirm how much you know. Then she'll make you look unreliable. Like what? jealousy, emotional outbursts, mental instability, revenge in a failing marriage. She'll twist the truth and make it seem like it's your problem. I remembered the look Daniel gave me last night. I remembered Grace's words on the phone. Suddenly I realized those lines might have been prepared all along. Wow. Men are too obsessive, too much pressure. Upset. These weren't assessments. They were labels. They'd already started branding me. Before leaving, Ryan scribbled a phone number on a napkin. This is a lawyer. Evelyn Hart. Don't go to a regular divorce attorney. What you're dealing with isn't just an affair. I tucked the napkin into my bag. Ryan. He stopped. Why are you helping me? He looked at me, his tone flat. 3 years ago, a woman also wanted to speak the truth. She gave up. 2 months later, she died. My fingers slowly clenched. Who? Ryan didn't answer. He just said, first, protect yourself. That evening, Daniel came home as I was preparing a salad. It was the most peaceful dinner I'd had in 3 years. I washed the vegetables, sliced the tomatoes, and cooked the chicken breast. After he came in, he wrapped his arms around me from behind. I froze for a second. Then I didn't move. He rested his chin on my shoulder. Sorry about last night. I looked at the tomato on the cutting board, the red juice oozing out, like something cut open. For what? I came home too late. You might have overthought it. I said. I didn't overthink. His arms tightened slightly. That's good. I flipped the chicken breast. A soft sizzle echoed from the pan. Daniel continued. There's a small charity dinner in the community tomorrow. Olivia hopes we both attend. My hand holding the tongs froze. Yeah, she said many neighbors want to meet you. You're my wife. And they think you're truly remarkable. I turned to look at him. Because I supported you donating your entire salary. Daniel smiled softly. Because you have a kind heart. I almost wanted to splash the hot oil from the pan right onto his face, but I just turned down the heat. It'll go tomorrow. Daniel seemed to relax. Thank you. Ava. I looked at him. You don't need to thank me. Because I'm not going to support you. I'm going to watch how you perform. The dinner party took place the next evening at the community center, more formal than the night before. A board for Hope Harbor stood at the entrance, displaying children's photos and a message. Every child deserves a safe home. I stood in front of the phrase, remembering the little girl from the seaside villa. She truly did have a safe home. A home funded by my money. Daniel wore a deep blue suit today. Olivia wore a white suit. They stood at the front, looking like a perfect couple. As I walked in, many eyes turned toward me. Linda came over first. Ava, you look much better today. I smiled. Really? Daniel just said you've been working too hard lately. He really cares about you. I looked at Daniel. He was watching me too. A gentle smile on his face. But I already understood. He was laying the groundwork in advance. If I said the wrong thing tonight, everyone would remember his explanation. Ava's been exhausted lately. Ava's been emotional. Ava's unstable. After the dinner began, Olivia took the stage. She shared countless stories of a single mother who received help, a child who returned to school, a veteran who found a home. When she spoke with emotion, her voice cracked. Many people teared up. Not me. I just stared at her wrist. She wasn't wearing her diamond bracelet today. She was smart. Then Daniel stepped up. He held the microphone, his gaze sweeping the crowd before finally landing on me. Many people have asked me why I've been able to donate all my income every month. The audience fell silent. Daniel smiled. The answer is simple. I'm not doing this alone. My wife, Ava, has always supported me. Everyone turned to look at me. Applause erupted. I sat still in my chair, feeling as if I'd been thrust into the spotlight. Daniel continued. She's carried so much burden. She never complains. She's taught me that love isn't just about possession, it's about letting go. Truly letting go. Applause grew louder. Linda dabbed at her eyes. I stared at Daniel on stage. He was publicly tying me to his story. If the truth ever came out, he could say I knew all along, that I supported him willingly. He wasn't alone in the deception. Head pull me down with him. Olivia stepped beside me and leaned down, whispering, you should be proud of him. I looked at Daniel on stage. Why? Her smile remained unchanged. Not every woman gets a husband like him. I turned to her. And not every woman gets a husband showing up at her house in the middle of the night. Her face paled for an instant. This time, I didn't miss it. She quickly recovered her smile. I don't know what you're talking about. I smiled back. You do. Olivia straightened. She looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. Ava, jealousy makes you look pathetic. I said. The one who steals is the real pathetic one because she's always pretending she deserves it. Her eyes finally cooled. But applause erupted from the stage as Daniel descended. Olivia instantly returned to a soft expression. After dinner, Daniel grabbed my hand firmly. Ava, let's go home and talk. I stared at his hand. You're hurting me. Someone glanced over. Daniel immediately released my hand. He whispered, not here. Why not? You love talking about our marriage here, don't you? His expression shifted. This was the first time he'd shown genuine irritation in front of men at disappointment. Not gentle reproach, but coldness. In the car, he didn't start driving right away. Sitting in the driver's seat, He gripped the steering wheel with both hands. What the hell were you trying to do tonight? I stared ahead. I just told the truth. What truth? That you were at Olivia's house in the middle of the night. Daniel turned to look at me. The car's lights were dim, but I saw his pupils contract. After a few seconds, he laughed quietly, like hearing a ridiculous joke. So, you've been following me. I didn't answer. He continued. Ava, do you know how insane that sounds? More insane than you saying you were at a charity meeting when you were actually at a seaside villa. His voice turned colder. That was a donor's house. The child is Olivia's adopted daughter. She was unwell and I went to help. Did she receive the donor in her nightgown? Daniel abruptly turned toward me. Ava, enough. I stayed calm. The child called you daddy. His face darkened completely. This time, he didn't try to explain immediately. Long silence passed. Then he said, she has no father. She calls several familiar male volunteers daddy. The lie was so transparent it almost made me laugh, but I didn't point it out. I simply said, I see. Daniel stared at me. He didn't believe I'd bought it, but he had no idea what I held in my hands. That uncertainty frustrated him. After we got home, he didn't speak to me again. He went upstairs to the study. I heard the door close. Then low-toned phone calls. I remained at the bottom of the stairs. I knew who he was talking to. A few minutes later, my phone vibrated. A new email arrived. No sender name. Empty subject line. Just one sentence in the body. Don't investigate Hope Harbor. Your husband isn't the most dangerous one. My fingers froze. There was an attachment. I tapped it open. It was an old photo. 4 people. Daniel, Olivia, Mark Wilson, and Grace Carter. They sat around a dining table. Wine bottles, documents, and a folder labeled Hope Harbor Foundation lay on the table. The date was in the corner 4 years ago, the year before I married Daniel. I stared at Grace's face. She smiled gently like someone who'd always known her prey would walk into the trap on their own. I stood in the foyer, staring at the photo. In it, I was signing papers at a bank counter. The angle was high, possibly viewed from a security camera in the lobby, or taken secretly from behind the second-floor railing. Below the photo, a single line. You're not investigating him. You're walking into the cage they've prepared for you. I didn't reply. I saved the photo, then forwarded it to Evelyn. 10 seconds later, she called. Who sent it? Unknown number. Where are you now? Home. Lock the door. Don't go out. Don't contact Daniel. Send me all the court documents. I looked at the papers in my hands. He filed first. I see it. Don't worry. This is classic preemptive storytelling. He's not trying to win, he's trying to make all your evidence look like a madwoman's revenge. I walked to the window. The sun outside was bright. The neighbor's lawn was being watered by an automatic sprinkler. Everything looked just like normal, but I knew I was now standing right in the middle of the battlefield. He demanded I undergo a psychological evaluation. He'll handle it. What if the judge believes him? Evelyn's voice was cold. Then we'll show the judge exactly why he's in such a hurry. I took a deep breath. He stole my laptop last night. Did you get hurt? I glanced at my shoulder. It was already bruising. I hit the doorframe. Take a photo. Go to the hospital today. Get it documented. I don't want to waste time. This isn't wasted time. You still haven't learned one thing, Ava. With people like Daniel, pain itself is useless. Pain must become evidence. I ended the call. Then I took a photo of the bruise on my shoulder. The dark purple mark stood out clearly on my skin. I used to feel ashamed of it. Now I only feel. Daniel has finally stopped pretending. No performance is a good thing. When actors leave the stage, their real faces finally show. At 10 a.m. Ryan messaged me. The article needs one final piece of evidence. Mark Wilson might be key. I'll meet you tonight. Mark Wilson, the 4th person in the photo, Daniel's friend, also the bank manager. I'd met him a few times before. He was always immaculately dressed, with a habit of making inappropriate jokes. He and Daniel seemed very close. Every time they talked, the moment I got near, Mark would switch topics. I used to think it was just boring guy talk about work. Now it seems like they were probably discussing my money. I texted Ryan. Where? He sent me an address. A parking lot behind an old bookstore. 8 p.m. I stared at the address. This place didn't sound like a witness meeting, more like a trap. I forwarded the message to Evelyn. She replied instantly. Don't go alone. Ryan must be there. Keep location on at all times. Record the phone call. I followed her instructions. In the afternoon, I went to the hospital. The doctor examined my shoulder and asked how I got hurt. I had a family conflict, I said. The doctor looked up at me. Her expression was complex, not curious, not judgmental, but weary. She'd heard this story too many times before. She documented the injury and handed me a card for domestic violence support. Holding that card, I walked out of the hospital. I used to think that kind of thing didn't apply to me. Daniel didn't hit me often. He never locked me in the house. In fact, he was mostly gentle, polite, respectful. But now I understand. Violence doesn't always start with fists. It can begin with a single phrase. You're unstable, or a single bill, or the slow erosion of your own judgment, or the moment the whole world believes he's a good man while you bear the cost alone. At 7:30 p.m. I drove to the old bookstore. Ryan was already there. He stood in the corner of the parking lot, wearing a black jacket, holding his phone. You shouldn't have driven yourself, he said. I'm not weak enough to not drive. It's not about weakness. I know, but I don't want every step to feel like I'm running away. Ryan looked at me, then stayed silent. At exactly 8 p.m. a silver car drove into the parking lot. Mark Wilson got out of the car. He was much thinner than I remembered. His complexion was gray, with heavy shadows under his eyes. When he saw me and Ryan, his first words were, "I'm not going to prison." Ryan said coldly, "That depends on what you've done." Mark seemed about to leave. I stepped forward and spoke directly. "Daniel has already sued me. He says I'm crazy. He'll next push you out too." Mark stopped. I continued, "If you still think they'll protect you, you're even dumber than I was over the past 3 years." That hit home. Mark's face twitched. "You don't know how ruthless Olivia is. Then tell me." He glanced toward the parking lot exit as if constantly fearing someone would burst in. The Hope Harbor money didn't just vanish. After Daniel's 32,000 went into the foundation's account. It was split into parts. 12,000 kept on the public books. The rest funneled through project prepayments to several companies. Harbor Light Consulting. Mark shot me a sharp look. "How do you know that?" "My mother's insurance payout 85,000 was transferred to that company." Mark turned even paler. "That was a long time ago." "How long?" He pressed his lips together. "Daniel and Grace had known Olivia longer than you think. Hope Harbor wasn't Daniel's charitable dream from the start, it was Olivia's money conduit. When Daniel joined, they needed someone stable, high-earning, with a clean image. You came at the perfect time." Those words cut like knives. Perfect. So I wasn't a loved one. I was a condition, with mortgage capacity, with prenuptial insurance money, recently orphaned, emotionally vulnerable, easy to believe in kindness. I asked, "Who chose me?" Mark stayed silent. I took another step closer. "Who?" he whispered. "Grace." The parking lot was silent. A car passed in the distance, its headlights sweeping across the wall. I heard something deep inside me crack completely, not because of Daniel, but because I remembered the first time I met Grace, her trembling hands in the hospital corridor. She wasn't there by accident. She was waiting for me. How did she know about my insurance? I asked. Mark looked away. "She knew the person who handled your mother's insurance documents. She knew you'd be coming to the hospital to settle the aftermath." Ryan couldn't hold back a curse. I didn't curse. I just felt cold. An icy cold. Deep inside. Rising from my bones. "Who's the little girl?" I asked. Mark's expression grew even more complicated. "Her birth certificate says I'm her father." I froze. "Are you her father?" "No," he replied instantly. "I was forced to sign. Olivia said it was just to shield Daniel from marital risks. She claimed Daniel couldn't be linked to a child otherwise. His assets and reputation would be compromised. So the child is Daniel's." Mark stayed silent. That was the answer. I pressed on. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Olivia wants me gone." "What do you mean?" Mark pulled a USB drive from his pocket. "Inside are partial transfer records and emails between me and Olivia. She instructed me to fabricate your access trails by making internal authorizations appear as if you'd accessed them." "My access?" "They're setting up proof that you illegally hacked Daniel's financial accounts and forged documents. Then all your evidence will be turned into criminal behavior." Ryan took the USB drive but didn't plug it into the computer right away. "Anything else?" Mark looked at me. "Daniel will be making a public statement tomorrow." "What kind of statement?" "He says you've been mentally unstable for a long time, stalking him, threatening Olivia, and trying to destroy a child's life. He'll have several people from the neighborhood testify that you acted strangely at the charity gala." I chuckled. "So they had already prepared the hunt?" I asked. "And Grace?" Mark hesitated. "Grace has authorization documents signed by you about your mother's insurance payout and pre-signed paperwork for a home equity loan." "I never signed a home equity loan." "They might not need your signature now. They just need to prove you once agreed." I thought of the fake authorization letter in the storage room. My fingers went numb. Evelyn was right. Every dollar has to be reviewed again. Every signature, too. Mark said quietly, "Ava, I gave you this because I don't want to take the blame for them. But you have to protect me." I stared at him. "How deeply were you involved?" "I helped process a few wire transfers." "Did you know the money was stolen?" He didn't answer. I said, "You're not a victim, Mark. You're just someone who realized the ship was sinking and wanted to be the first to jump." His face turned red. "I can testify." "Then testify." "I need a deal. Talk to my lawyer." He nodded, turned to leave. I called out, "Mark." He turned around. "The person who took the photo of me at the bank is at you." His expression changed. "No." "Do you know who it is?" He glanced at Ryan, then back at me. "Olivia has someone following her. Probably more than one." With that, he got in the car and drove off. I stood in the parking lot, watching the taillights fade into the distance. Ryan placed the USB drive in an anti-static bag. "Are you okay?" I looked at him. "That question is pointless. It matters. I'm not okay, but I can still go on." Ryan said nothing. Suddenly I asked, "You said 3 years ago there was a woman who wanted to expose the truth and then she died. Who was she?" Ryan's expression darkened. Lena Morris, former project director at Hope Harbor. She discovered the project funds were falsified. She was going to give me the documents but then changed her mind. 2 months later, she died in a car accident. An accident. The police concluded it was an accident. Do you believe that? I have no proof. Did Daniel know her? Ryan looked at me. At that time, Daniel had already started contacting Olivia and Grace. I understood. This went much deeper than I imagined. I wasn't the first to uncover the truth. I'm just the one still alive right now. The next morning, Daniel's statement went live, not on major media but on his own social account, but it quickly spread through community groups, charity pages, and Olivia's own accounts. The title was gentle. Please give my wife some space. I opened it. Daniel wrote with restraint. He said, I've been under severe work pressure and poor sleep lately, developing serious misunderstandings. He claimed I followed him to the home of a family partnered with the foundation, frightening a child who had been adopted. He said he wouldn't blame me, because marriage requires patience. He emphasized that Hope Harbor is innocent, and Olivia is innocent. He said he was seeking legal help just to protect everyone. The last sentence was the most disgusting. I still love Ava, and I also hope she accepts help. After reading it, I wasn't angry. To be precise, I didn't have time to be angry because the comments below were already exploding. Daniel is too kind. He still protects his wife even after this. Struggling isn't an excuse to harm charity. That child is so pitiful. I hope Ava accepts treatment. Woman's jealousy is truly terrifying. I put down my phone. A few minutes later, Linda sent me a message. Ava, I don't know how to say this, but you really need to stay calm. Daniel is a good man. I stared at that sentence and deleted it without hesitation. Daniel achieved his goal. He turned me into a madwoman, made himself into the wronged husband, painted Olivia as an innocent charitable woman, made that child into a shield. But he Ade one mistake. He was too eager. Those who rush will overstate their lies. Evelyn called an emergency meeting at 10 a.m. After reading Daniel's statement, she only said, very good. I looked up. You call this good? He publicly claimed things that can all be disproven by evidence: defamation, misinformation, interference with justice. It's all in our favor. Ryan brought over the USB drive containing partial transfer records, emails, internal approval screenshots. Evelyn's auditor was also there, Thomas Reed, white-haired, speaking slowly. He studied the documents for 2 hours. Finally, he took off his glasses. The trail is basically clear. After Daniel's donations reached the foundation, part of the funds were channeled under the guise of project consulting, temporary housing, and transportation costs into 3 companies. Harbor Light Consulting is one of them. Its actual controller is connected to Olivia. I asked, what about Grace? Thomas pulled out an old document. Grace Carter was one of Harbor Light's early authorized contacts. The room fell silent. I stared at that name. Grace Carter. She wasn't a bystander. She wasn't a mother deceived by her son. She was part of the game. Evelyn turned to me. Are you ready? Ready for what? They've openly attacked you. We can no longer just defend ourselves. Next step, freeze their accounts and apply for preservation of evidence. Ryan added, we can prepare the press release too. Evelyn glanced at him. The release can't come before legal action. First, freeze their hands. Then let the public see their faces. I looked at the documents on the table. This wasn't the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of war. In the afternoon, we submitted an emergency application to the court. Evelyn filed for a protective order, counterattacking Daniel's allegations about my mental state, and requested preservation of documents related to Daniel, Hope Harbor, Harbor Light Consulting, and associated accounts. At the same time, Ryan began contacting former Hope Harbor staff. One name appeared. Hannah Lewis, the finance assistant who had prepared to testify 3 years ago but then backed down. When Ryan found her, she had already moved to another state. At first, she refused to answer, until Ryan told her Ava Miller might become the second Lena. The line went silent for a long time. Then Hannah said, I can only say this once. Evelyn had us record the entire conversation. Hannah's voice trembled. Olivia controls the entire foundation. Daniel isn't an innocent donor. He knew part of the money would be redirected. He started out cooperating, but eventually he also got benefits. What benefits? Evelyn asked. A villa, a car, a personal account, and the child's expenses. I sat beside her, silent. Hannah continued. Grace was in charge of making Ava pay the household bills. She said as long as Ava kept believing Daniel's money was donated, she wouldn't ask questions. She also said Ava felt guilty and was easy to manipulate. My hands slowly clenched. Guilt. They disassembled my kindness and sorrow, treating them like exploitable machinery. Hannah concluded. Watch out for Olivia. Lena didn't die by accident. After the call disconnected, nobody spoke in the room. Ryan looked pale. Evelyn saved the recording. I stared at her. Will this hold up? It can serve as a lead. We still need her official testimony. Will she give it? Not necessarily. Then we'll force her to choose. Evelyn looked at me. You've gotten quick. I'm just finally stopping myself from making excuses for them. In the evening, I returned home to pack essential belongings. Evelyn suggested I temporarily move out. I agreed. This house was paid for by me, but now it isn't safe. I packed my clothes, documents, my mother's photo and the old cardboard box from the storage closet. Just as I carried the box to the door, Grace arrived. She held a spare key. She opened the door directly. I stared at her. You have no right to use that key anymore. Grace closed the door behind her. This is my son's home. The house is in my name. You'll lose it soon. She said it calmly, as if already knowing the outcome. I picked up my phone and pressed record. Grace saw it and smiled slightly. You're learning fast. Taught by you. She stepped into the living room, eyeing the packed boxes. Are you really going to bring this all the way? I said. It's not me making a scene. You just picked the wrong person to steal from. Grace's gaze turned icy. Ava, don't overestimate yourself. Daniel can remarry. Olivia can start fresh. The foundation can change its name. But what about you? You're 32, childless, buried under a mortgage. Your reputation ruined. What do you think you can win? Each word was a knife, but I no longer retreat when the blade stings. I can win myself back. Grace laughed as if hearing a joke. You weren't like this before. I disappointed you. I actually believed you were a mother. Her expression finally twisted. I am a mother. That's why I'm helping my son. Then How did you take the money my mother left? Grace fell silent. I stepped forward. $85,000. Harbor Light Consulting. A forged authorization. Do you remember? She looked at me. Those eyes held no guilt, only disgust. Your mother is dead. The money was useless where it was. Daniel is alive. He has a future. I stared at her. Those words sealed her fate. She realized I was recording, but it was too late. She lunged to grab my phone. I stepped back. She missed, crashing into the corner of the table. A second later, she fell to the ground herself and screamed instantly. Help! Ava pushed me. Before I could react, the door swung open from outside. Daniel rushed in. He hadn't just arrived, had been outside all along. Grace sat on the floor crying, clutching her arm. She pushed me. She's insane. Daniel looked up at me. His expression was unnervingly calm. He pulled out his phone, already recording as if had been prepared all along. Ava, stay away from my mother. I looked at the two of them. Then I laughed suddenly. Daniel frowned. What are you laughing at? I raised my phone. I'm laughing because you're acting too early. The phone was still recording from the moment Grace walked in, all the way up to her saying, money lying there is meaningless. Everything had been captured. Daniel's face changed. I was about to save the file when he suddenly lunged forward. This time, he wasn't after the laptop. He was after my phone. I turned and ran toward the door. Grace grabbed my ankle from the floor. I fell, the phone slipping from my grip. Daniel bent down to pick it up. Right as his fingers touched the device, Ryan's voice came from the entrance. Daniel. Daniel froze. Ryan stood in the doorway. Behind him, a private security team Evelyn had arranged. Ryan also held a phone in his hand. Keep fighting. The footage will be fascinating. Daniel stared at him, his face ashen. Evelyn stepped forward from behind the security team. She glanced at Grace on the floor, then at Daniel. Mr. Carter, from now on, you and your mother are not to approach my client. A restraining order has been filed. Next time, well, go straight to the police. Grace screamed. She pushed me. Evelyn turned to me. Is the recording still on? I picked up the phone. The screen was cracked slightly, but the recording was intact. I pressed stop, saved, uploaded it. Then I looked at Daniel. Now, your mother is in. Daniel didn't speak. He just stared at me. That look told me he wouldn't stop. He wasn't trying to salvage the situation anymore. He was preparing to destroy me. That night, I checked into a hotel. At 1 in the morning, I received an email from an anonymous address. The attachment was a video. The thumbnail showed my mother. She sat on a hospital bed, pale-faced but smiling bravely at the camera. My fingers froze instantly. I clicked to play. My mother's voice came through. Ava, if you're seeing this, then I may not have been able to tell you myself. I covered my mouth. In the video, my mother coughed quietly for a moment, then said, don't trust that woman named Grace Carter. Don't trust her son. The video abruptly cut off. Below it, a message appeared. To see the full version, come alone to Harbor Pier tomorrow at noon. I stared at the broken clip. My mother, lying in the hospital bed. My mother saying, don't trust Grace Carter. That meant she knew something before she died. That meant she had tried to warn me. But I had never received this video before. Someone had cut it. Someone had hidden it. I sent the video to Evelyn and Ryan. Evelyn called me immediately. Don't go. I looked at my mother on screen. I have to know what comes next. That's exactly what they want, the reaction. To get you to go alone to a strange place that it could be someone trying to help me. The one helping you wouldn't have you go alone. She was right. But reason and pain are not the same thing. I'd already lost my mother now I realize she might have been deceived, manipulated, even silenced before she died. I couldn't just sit in a hotel and wait. Ryan took the phone. We're going, but not alone. You show up as they ask, and we'll be watching nearby. Evelyn was silent for a few seconds. I'll handle the arrangements. Ava, Remember, video matters, but you matter more. Don't send a living person in to die for the dead. She spoke firmly, and I needed that firmness. At noon, I arrived at Harbor Pier. An old dock, strong wind, few tourists. The wooden walkway stretched above dark water. I wore a black coat. My phone on location, earbuds connected to Ryan. I can see you. Ryan murmured, keep walking, don't look back. I reached the spot. Next to a bench sat a red envelope. I bent down and picked it up. No USB drive inside, just a single sheet of paper. Your mother's video is in Daniel's hands. Tonight at 7, have him sign the agreement at the law office. Otherwise, the video will be gone forever. I finished reading, and suddenly it clicked. This wasn't from Olivia, nor from Daniel. It felt more like something from someone who knew Daniel's next move. Someone forcing him into the open. I snapped a photo and sent it to Evelyn. She replied in one line. Set the trap tonight. At 7 that evening, the meeting room at Evelyn's law office was brightly lit. Daniel arrived. Not alone. Olivia and Grace were there too, along with Daniel's lawyer. When Daniel walked in, he still looked composed. Dark suit, clean tie. Tired but restrained expression, like a man worn down by his wife into negotiations. Olivia sat beside him. She wore a black suit, no jewelry, looked like a victim. Grace's arm was wrapped in bandages. When she saw me, her eyes instantly filled with tears. The performance was flawless. Daniel's lawyer slid a document across the table. Mr. Carter is willing to end this marriage peacefully. The terms are simple. I opened the agreement. First, the house would go to Daniel after the divorce. Second, I would take on part of the marital debt. Third, I would publicly admit I had misunderstood Daniel and Hope Harbor. Fourth, I would never publish, distribute, or submit any materials related to Daniel, Olivia, Grace, or Hope Harbor again. Fifth, I would undergo psychological treatment and acknowledge that my past actions were driven by emotion. I finished reading. I laughed. Daniel looked at me. This is your last chance to remain dignified. I asked. Dignity. If you push further, you'll lose even more. Olivia said softly. Ava. Stop. You've already hurt too many people. I turned to her, including that child. Her eyes turned cold. Daniel immediately said, don't mention her. Why? Didn't she call you daddy? Daniel's lawyer frowned. My client won't answer such malicious questions. Evelyn, sitting beside me, spoke calmly. Fine, let's discuss the finances. She placed a stack of documents on the table. This is Daniel Carter's 3-year transaction record to the Hope Harbor Foundation. Another stack. This is the Hope Harbor Public Report. Another stack. This outlines the flow of funds into Harbor Light Cons, Olting, Northline Housing Services, and Bright Road Project Management. Daniel's lawyer paled. Evelyn continued. Early authorized contacts at Harbor Light Consulting included Grace Carter. We also have an audio recording proving that Grace Carter admitted to using Ava's mother's inherited funds to support Daniel's so-called future. Grace shrieked. I didn't. Evelyn didn't glance at her. The recording will be submitted during appropriate proceedings. Olivia stood up. I won't accept this slander. Ryan walked in through the back door of the conference room. He wasn't alone. He brought a film crew. Olivia's expression finally changed. Daniel rose as well. You brought journalists in. Evelyn looked at him. This is my law office. You may leave, but you should hear it through first. Daniel's phone started vibrating. Once, twice, 3 times. Then Olivia's phone rang. Then Grace's. Ryan's investigation report had gone live. The headline was direct. The kind husband, the philanthropist queen, and the missing over $1 million. The report didn't rely on exaggeration. It laid out facts. Daniel Carter transferred 32,000 monthly, but the foundation's public records only reflected 12,000. Multiple Hope Harbor Foundation project expenditures flowed to affiliated companies. Olivia Blake used those affiliated companies to cover the cost of her seaside villa. Grace Carter had been involved in early documents at Harbor Light Consulting. Mark Wilson provided internal bank emails and transaction evidence. Ava Miller had long borne the family expenses, and Daniel publicly described her as mentally unstable. Finally, the report included an excerpt of Daniel's recorded words from the counseling session. No one will believe a wife driven mad by money. Those words struck like a bomb. They didn't crash my marriage. They demolished Daniel's carefully crafted image. Daniel lunged at Ryan. This is illegal wiretapping. Evelyn interjected. The recording took place during a conversation involving my client. State law permits single-party consent recording. You're welcome to continue. Mr. Carter. Daniel halted. Olivia no longer cared about acting. She whispered to Daniel. You said there would be no recording. Daniel glanced at her. Shut up. Those 2 words silenced the room. Olivia stared at him. She finally understood Daniel would also cast her aside. I sat across from them, watching their true selves emerge. This was more satisfying than any revenge, because I didn't have to speak. They tore each other apart on their own. Daniel's lawyer quickly gathered the documents and prepared to leave. Today's session is over, Evelyn said. The court has approved preliminary evidence preservation. Related accounts are prohibited from transferring funds. You will receive official notification. Daniel looked at me. His gaze was venomous. Ava, do you think you've won? I've just begun. He smiled slowly. That smile made me uneasy. Want to know what happens after the video of your mother? My body froze. Everyone in the meeting room stopped. Daniel saw my reaction and smiled wider. So you already received it? Evelyn immediately said. Don't answer. But Daniel already knew. He looked at me, his voice quiet. Before she died, your mother was smarter than you. She realized Grace's approach wasn't accidental. She even planned to call the police. I stood up. Where's the video? Daniel adjusted his cuff. Sign the agreement. And I'll give it to you. Ryan spoke coldly. You're extorting us in front of lawyers and cameras. Daniel turned to him. I'm simply discussing private matters with my wife. I walked around the table toward him. Evelyn called out. Ava. I didn't stop. I stood directly in front of Daniel, looking at the man I had shared a bed with for 3 years. Do you know why I kept this family together all along? Daniel said nothing. Because I believed you were good. I thought if I worked harder, at least I was doing it for a decent person. But now I realize you're neither good nor smart. His expression grew dark. I continued. Your greatest mistake was thinking I'd still beg you out of love. I picked up the contract on the table and tore it in half right in front of him. Daniel. I want sign. The paper pieces fell to the floor. Show what you have. Try to destroy whatever you want. Because from today forward, I won't spend a single penny of my life to pay for you. Daniel's face slowly turned cold. He stepped closer, whispering only for me to hear. Then I'll make sure you never see what she said in the end. I stared at him. I hope you really have that video. He slightly frowned. I pulled out my phone and opened a photo of the note from the doc envelope. Because the one who sent me the video isn't necessarily your man. For the first time, Daniel's expression cracked, barely noticeable, but I saw it. He had no idea who sent it. That meant there was a fourth party. Someone had the video of my mother, and someone else wanted Daniel exposed. Daniel turned and walked away. Olivia followed. Grace paused at the door, glancing back at me. No more fake injury. Her eyes were cold as a snake's. Your mother once thought she could win too. I looked at her. At least she didn't run on stolen money from dead people to raise her son. Grace's face twisted for a split second. Evelyn stood up. Grace Carter. I recommend you remember those words. Because we certainly have. After they left, I sank back into my chair. My body felt suddenly weak. Ryan shut off the recording equipment and came over. You just took a huge risk. But it worked. You can't keep pushing like that. Then what should I do? Ryan looked at me. Survive until the end. Harsh words, but true. For the next 24 hours, public opinion completely reversed. Comments underneath Daniel's statement began disappearing, his supporters deleting their posts one by one. The neighborhood group fell quiet for several hours. Then someone posted, if this is true, it's terrifying. Linda sent me a long message. Ava. I don't know how to apologize. I thought Daniel was a good person. I didn't reply. Apologies mean nothing after harm has been done, especially from those who only changed their stance once the evidence came out. They didn't believe in me. They believed in the tide of public opinion. That night, the Hope Harbor website went down. Olivia's social media account stopped updating. Daniel's company released a statement saying they had suspended his role pending an internal investigation. The speed with which he lost his shine was faster than I'd imagined. Because the halo was never gold. It was USD, a thin layer of paper, something others were willing to believe in. The next day, Mark formally met with Evelyn. He agreed to testify in exchange for a lesser charge. He handed over more documents. Among them was an email, sent by Grace, addressed to Daniel and Olivia, dated 2 months before my wedding to Daniel. The message was brief. Ava has already trusted Daniel. Her mother's files are nearly completed. After marriage, let her handle mortgage and household bills. But don't let her touch the main accounts. She's used to taking on responsibilities she won't suspect too soon. I read those words and froze. She's used to taking on responsibility. These 4 words made me sick. They weren't lucky guesses. They were studied. After my mother passed, I truly did become more tolerant because I feared losing, worried about burdening others, afraid I wasn't worthy of love. Daniel slipped into that crack. That afternoon, Evelyn's auditor, Thomas, found another crucial document. The Harbor Light Consulting account had once received 85,000 transferred from my pre-marriage account. 3 days later, the amount was split into 3 parts. One portion went into the Hope Harbor project account. Another paid for the down payment on Daniel's car. The last covered Grace's private medical insurance debt. I stared at the fund flow chart. No tears, just a deep sense of absurdity. Daniel once picked me up in that car to try on my wedding dress. Grace later took my hand and said she'd never met a girl as kind as me. On that day, they might have still been carrying money stolen from my mother. I asked Thomas, can we recover it? He said, partially. It depends on the accounts and liability assessments. I nodded. Money mattered. But in that moment, I cared more about recovering something else. I wanted to get back the version of myself sitting in the hospital hallway, foolish enough to believe a stranger's pain. That evening, Ryan came to the law office. He brought news. Hannah is willing to testify formally. I looked up. Why suddenly? Because someone sent her a video too. My mother's. No, Lena Morris. Ryan set the tablet on the table. On screen was a woman, Lena, sitting in a car, visibly tense, speaking directly to the camera. If something happens to me, Check Hope Harbor's Harbor Light account. Olivia isn't acting alone. Grace Carter and Daniel Carter both know. Daniel handles attracting funds. Grace finds people easy to control. The video ends here. Ryan's fingers pressed against the edge of the tablet. Knuckles white. 3 years ago. She left a video too, but I never received it. I looked at him. The same person is releasing these now. Yes. Who could it be? Ryan didn't answer. Evelyn walked in, holding freshly printed documents. It might be Olivia. Ryan and I both looked at her simultaneously. Evelyn set the papers down. Police just discovered that Olivia tried to transfer a batch of files overseas this morning. She was securing an escape route for herself. I frowned. Why would she help M.E.? She's not helping you. She's cutting Daniel and Grace loose. Ryan understood. She wants to prove Daniel and Grace are the masterminds. Evelyn nodded. So she's releasing material damaging to them while keeping favorable versions for herself. I let out a cold laugh. These people don't have friends. Only accomplices whose interests haven't yet collapsed. At 10 o'clock that night, Olivia contacted me on her own. She sent a message. Want to know where your mother's complete video is? Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come to the old Hope Harbor office. This time, I didn't act on impulse. I forwarded it straight to Evelyn. After reading it, she said, "Go." Well, go together. The next morning, 2 police cars were already parked outside the old Hope Harbor office. Not ours. Someone had already reported financial crimes. Olivia wasn't inside. She left behind a safe code. The safe was hidden behind the wall in her old office. Inside were a hard drive, documents, several photocopies of birth certificates, and a blue USB drive. The label on the USB read, Miller. My hand started to tremble. Evelyn looked at me, ready to watch. I said, now. The video opened. My mother appeared on screen this time. Complete. She sat in a hospital bed, her voice weak. Ava, if you're seeing this, then I might not have been able to tell you myself. Don't trust the woman named Grace Carter. Don't trust her son either. Grace came to the hospital. She said she knew you. She said you were bearing too much alone and that her son could take care of you. She asked me so many questions about insurance, payments and the house. Mother coughed deeply. My vision blurred, but I didn't look away. She continued. I didn't know what she wanted, but she made me uneasy. Ava, you trust people too easily. That's what I've always worried about. If I'm gone, don't cling to the first person who shows you kindness because you're lonely. Someone who truly loves you won't rush to take your money, won't make all your decisions for you, and won't make you feel indebted. She paused, clearly in pain. Then she looked directly into the camera. The money I left you wasn't meant to help any man build a future. It was meant to give you the strength to survive. The video paused briefly. Then she said her final words. Sweetheart, kindness isn't wrong, but first, you must protect yourself. The screen faded. The room was silent. I sat there, and finally, tears began to fall not from weakness, but because I finally heard my mother's delayed warning. She saw it. She truly saw it. Only I hadn't heard her in time. Daniel didn't just steal the money. He stole the last protection my mother left me. That night, Daniel was taken in for questioning by the police. Olivia was taken away as well. Grace tried to leave the city but was stopped at the airport. The media captured a picture of Daniel lowering his head as he got into the car. He didn't smile anymore. He didn't speak of kindness, but I knew he wouldn't give up easily. Late at night, I received an email from Daniel. The subject line read, "You'll regret this." The body contained only one sentence. Ava, you destroyed me. It'll make you know your mother didn't die naturally. I stared at that email for a long time. Not natural death. The words were venomous. They might not be true, but they were enough to throw me into chaos. Daniel knew me. He knew my mother was my deepest wound. So even though he had already been taken in for questioning, he still drove the knife back in. I forwarded the email to Evelyn. She responded quickly. Don't contact him privately. Well, investigate. I asked, could it possibly be true? She didn't comfort me. It's possible, or it could just be his final act of control. Well, look at the evidence. That was the answer I needed. Not don't worry, not it won't happen, but let's see the evidence. The next day, Evelyn contacted Peter Lang, the person who had handled my mother's medical and insurance documents back then. He was retired. At first, he refused to meet. It wasn't until Evelyn mentioned Grace Carter that he finally agreed to see me. We met in an old law office. Peter had white hair and held a cup of water the whole time. When he saw me, he couldn't look me in the eyes. I asked directly, did you know my mother? Yes. And Grace Carter? He nodded. She came to see me back then. She said your mother was worried you were too young and wanted her to help. Did my mother authorize it? Peter's lips turned pale. No formal authorization. I stared at him. Then why did you give her the information? He closed his eyes. I owed money. Grace gave me cash. The room fell silent for a few seconds. I didn't yell at him. There was no point in anger. I simply asked, did Daniel know? Yes. And Olivia? I'm not sure. But the Harbor Light documents, they came from their side. Evelyn slid a signed document across the table. Is this signature genuine? Peter glanced at it, then quickly looked away. No, it isn't. Who forged it? I don't know, but I did stamp it. His voice grew quieter. I thought it was just early financial processing. I didn't realize they'd take the money. I finally said, was it that you couldn't imagine it or that you simply didn't want to? Peter's face turned red. I continued, when you took the money, you knew my mother was close to death. You knew I was her only daughter. You knew what that money meant to me. You weren't fooled, you just thought I'd never find out. He lowered his head. I'm sorry. Those 3 words were light as ash. I said, keep your apology for the courtroom. Peter eventually signed the affidavit. After that, the case moved quickly. Daniel, Olivia, Grace, and Mark were all formally under investigation. Mark, having cooperated early, had the lightest charge. The information he handed over proved Daniel wasn't just used by Olivia, he had actively participated in designing the financial scheme. He knew the 32,000 monthly wouldn't all go to charity. He knew I was paying the mortgage and bills. He knew Grace used my guilt to manipulate me. He even wrote in an email, Ava won't check. She'll only blame herself for not supporting me enough. When I read that, I felt strangely calm, because Daniel was half right. The past me would have blamed myself, but he underestimated one thing. A person who's suffered in silence for too long, once awakened, doesn't just want to leave. She wants to tally every single detail. On the day of the official hearing, reporters waited outside the courthouse. I wore a black suit, no jewelry, my hair pulled back. Ryan waited for me at the entrance. He handed me a cup of coffee. You look very calm. I am calm. That's good. I glanced at him. Don't look at me with that worried expression like I'm about to break. He paused. Then nodded. Okay. Inside the courtroom, I saw Daniel. He sat on the other side, a few weeks apart, head lost weight, still trying to maintain dignity. Grace sat behind him. She wasn't wearing her pearl gray cardigan instead. She wore dark clothes, looking every bit the grieving mother. Olivia wasn't sitting with them. She'd already changed lawyers. The alliance had completely collapsed. After the hearing began, Daniel's lawyer still tried to shift the focus back to my mental state. He claimed I had stalked Daniel, that I took secret photos of the children, that I attacked Olivia at a community dinner, that I'd become paranoid due to long-term financial stress. Evelyn didn't interrupt. She let him finish. Then, she stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She simply presented the evidence, one by one. Bank statements, public reports, affiliated company documents, Harbor Light account records, fake authorization letters, Peter Lang's testimony, Mark's testimony, Grace's recordings, Daniel's counseling session recordings, my mother's video. Each piece of evidence was like a brick, one after another. They shattered the 3-year facade Daniel had built. Daniel's lawyer began drinking water more frequently. Grace's face turned pale. Olivia sat silently, head down the entire time. When it was my turn to speak, the courtroom was completely silent. I stood up. The judge asked if I needed a break. I said no. I looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. At that moment, I wasn't trembling with hate. I just thought he was small. A man built on the kindness, sorrow, and money of others when stripped bare. There was nothing inside. I began. Once, I believed Daniel Carter was a good man. He told me every month that he donated his full 32,000 salary to charity. I believed him for 3 years. During those 3 years, I paid for the mortgage, utilities, insurance, car payments, living expenses and Grace Carter's medical bills. I paused. No one spoke in the courtroom. Then I continued. Daniel's kindness wasn't for the poor. It was for the audience watching. Real kindness doesn't leave a wife starving while paying the bills. Real charity doesn't survive on fake records, forged signatures, or stealing money from a dead mother's inheritance meant for her daughter. I took a breath. Daniel didn't give money to the world. He took my life and turned it into a trophy for himself. Daniel's face was grim. I turned to Grace. Grace Carter said the money my mother left behind was meaningless, just in there. She said Daniel is alive, that he has a future. I clenched my hands. But so am I. My mother left that money for me to have a future, not for them to steal it. Finally, I looked at the judge. I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking the court to review the accounts, the documents, the words they've spoken themselves. Don't let them cover up theft with the word kindness anymore. I sat down. Evelyn didn't look at me. She simply gave a light nod. That was her way of showing agreement. The hearing's outcome wasn't a final verdict, but it was crucial. The court maintained the asset freeze. It denied Daniel's request to restrict my access to financial documents. It refused to compel a psychological evaluation. It granted my application to protect the house and personal files. And it ordered Daniel, Grace, Hope Harbor, and their affiliated companies to submit full financial records. This wasn't the end, but Daniel had lost his first legal battle. As we left the courtroom, the media swarmed us. Someone asked, Ava, what's the first thing you'd like to say to Daniel right now? I stopped. Daniel was coming out the other side. He heard. I looked into the camera. I don't have anything to say to him. I just want to say to people like me, don't let someone else's narrative explain your pain. Receipts don't lie. Transfers don't lie. Your exhaustion doesn't lie. I finished speaking and walked down the steps. Ryan walked beside me. That line will spread. Let it. Are you even concerned? I used to care way too much what others thought. In the end, I almost died from their judgment. Ryan said nothing. 1 month later, the formal case entered deeper investigation. The Hope Harbor Foundation was suspended. Legally remaining funds were placed under temporary oversight and redirected into genuinely transparent relief programs. Olivia, seeking to reduce her liability, handed over a massive volume of internal documents. She admitted using foundation funds to pay for the villa and acknowledged her long-term relationship with Daniel, but she tried to shift blame onto Daniel and Grace. Daniel naturally denied it, claiming Olivia manipulated him. Grace said she was merely a mother trying to help her son. For the first time, the three of them began turning on each other. It wasn't pretty, but it was fair, because they had once jointly devoured my life. Now, it was their turn to gnaw at each other's scraps. Mark received a lighter sentence, but his career was ruined. Peter Lang was also held accountable. The Harbor Light consulting account was seized. A portion of my mother's insurance payout was recovered, not all. Money already spent couldn't be fully reclaimed. When Evelyn told me this, her tone was direct. You won't get all the money back. I nodded. I know. You won't get those years back either. I know that too. She looked at me. But you've reclaimed control. That statement sounded simple, but it was true. 3 months later, the divorce decree between me and Daniel took effect. The house was mine. Marital debts were restructured. Daniel was ordered to pay me financial damages. His public defamation of me was also incorporated into civil liability. Grace was required to return funds tied to my mother's insurance money and assume accountability. Daniel's criminal case involving financial fraud and document forgery continued to progress. I didn't attend every hearing. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life tied to his downfall. That's what I've learned. Revenge isn't staring at someone rotting every single day. Revenge is taking back what you lost and truly walking away. I moved back into the house. The first thing I did was change the locks. The second was to clear out everything Daniel had left behind: his suits, his trophies, photos from charity galas, thank you cards sent by neighbors. The card said, "Thank you for making the world better." I tossed each one into a trash bag, one by one. No anger, just cleaning. I also packed up some things Grace had left in the guest room and sent them to her lawyer. I didn't want to smell that blend of pearl gray cardigan and perfume ever again. Then I hired someone to repaint the living room. The original walls were the cool gray Daniel liked. It made the space look elegant. He said, I changed it to a warm white, not to please anyone, just because I wanted the house to feel like mine. During that time, Linda came to visit. She stood at the door, holding a basket of homemade cookies. Ava, I'm so sorry. I looked at her. She seemed much more uneasy than before. I shouldn't have said those things. I didn't take the cookies. You weren't supposed to say them. You were supposed not to so easily believe a man's performance and then use his performance to teach me. Linda blushed. I just thought he looked like a good man. So you thought I should be grateful. He looked suffering. So you thought I should stay quiet. He looked respectable. So you thought I must be the problem. She lowered her head. I don't know what else to say. Then don't say anything. I closed the door. I don't need to perform forgiveness for every bystander. Forgiveness isn't a new performance, and it can't be demanded by others. Half a year later, I opened my own design studio, Miller Studio. I used my mother's maiden name. There was no big party on opening day, just a few potted plants, a simple sign, and the first table I designed myself. Ryan came. He brought a bottle of wine, celebrating. I'd say drinking at 2 p.m. is unprofessional. He smiled. Then let's do it later. We stood at the entrance of the studio. Sunlight glinted on the glass. Across the street was a bakery, the air warm with the scent of baking bread. It had been a long time since I'd felt so light during an entire day. Ryan looked at the sign. Your mom would have liked this name. I paused. I think so too. He placed the wine on the table. Daniel's case will be decided next week. I know. Will you go? No. Ryan looked at me. I've said all I needed to say. The rest is up to the court. He nodded. That's the right choice. I glanced at him. You're starting to sound like Evelyn. Then I'd better change. I smiled just slightly. It was the first real smile I'd had in a long time. Not to play along. Not to ease someone else's worry. Just because I felt like smiling. Daniel's verdict came out a week later. The charges of financial fraud, document forgery, and illicit transfer of marital assets were partially upheld. The sentence wasn't as severe as I'd imagined in my fantasies. Real life doesn't deliver the clean, decisive punishment of a revenge story, but it was enough to strip him of his freedom, his career, his reputation, and everything had built through performance. Olivia was also held accountable. Because of her age and health condition, Grace bore heavier civil liabilities, while her criminal responsibility was comparatively lighter. The outcome wasn't perfect, but the real world rarely is. I didn't break down. I didn't feel disappointed, because my goal wasn't their deaths. My goal was to come back to life. Several months later, I received a letter from Daniel, sent from prison. The envelope was thin. His handwriting remained elegant. I didn't open it right away. It sat on the table all day. That night, I poured myself a glass of water, sat down, and tore it open. Daniel wrote, Ava, I only now understand what you've endured. I was too deeply influenced by Olivia and my mother. I never stopped loving you. I was just lost at that time. I hope one day you can forgive me. I read that far and stopped. Then I ripped the letter in half without finishing it. The scraps fell into the TR. Ash beside the desk, soft whispers of paper. That was Daniel's final performance. He hadn't repented, had only switched roles. Previously, he was the kind husband. Later, the man wronged by his mad wife. Now, the sinner who strayed and asks for forgiveness. He would never admit one truth. He wasn't lost. He chose. Every wire transfer. Every lie. Every time he called me unstable. Every time he took money from my mother. All choices. I won't wash him clean with forgiveness. 1 year later, Miller's studio landed a major hotel renovation project. On the day we signed the contract, I sat alone in the conference room. They asked, "Are you handling this on your own?" I said, "Yes." They asked carefully. In the past, I might have explained endlessly, proving I was capable. Now, I didn't. I just opened the proposal and began presenting the design. 30 minutes later, they signed the document. As I walked out of the building, I saw Ryan leaning against the car. He wasn't holding flowers like in movies, just 2 cups of coffee. Success. Signed. Celebration. "We can drink that bottle of wine tonight." He smiled. We walked side by side. I knew Ryan had feelings for me, and he knew I knew, but he didn't push for an answer. That mattered, because I had enough of being pressured under the guise of love and kindness. Later, he asked me once, "Are you still afraid of trusting people again?" I thought a long time. Yes. He nodded. That's reasonable. I looked at him, but am more afraid of returning to who I was before, someone who gave herself away first, just to avoid losing anyone. Ryan didn't offer eloquent words. He said, "Then don't go back." I said, "I want." As spring was ending, I visited my mother's grave. The cemetery was quiet. I brought a bouquet of white tulips. I sat in front of her tombstone, talking to her for a long time about the studio, the house, the lawsuit, and how I finally watched her video. The wind brushed through the grass. I placed my hand on the stone. "Mom, you said kindness isn't wrong, but you must protect yourself first. Now I understand. I used to think love meant endurance, that marriage meant sacrifice, that if I were good enough, people would cherish me." Those ideas sounded gentle, but in truth, they were dangerous, because they handed my life over to other people's consciences. But Daniel had no conscience. Grace had none. Olivia had none. If you bet your fate on someone else's conscience, you're handing your keys to a thief. As I left the cemetery, the sky was bright. My phone buzzed softly. It was Evelyn. "Final payment has been recovered. The financial part of the case is concluded." I stared at those words, standing in the sunlight for a long time. Then I replied, "Received. Thank you." She wrote back, "Don't hand your money over to people who know how to tell stories." I smiled. Evelyn was still Evelyn. A few days later, I used the recovered funds to set up a small aid fund, small, unpretentious, with all transactions publicly visible and every project audited. No emotional videos, no heroic tales, no one standing in the spotlight boasting about their kindness. I named it Clear Harbor, not to commemorate Hope Harbor, but as a reminder to myself. Kindness without transparency easily becomes a veil. On the day the website went live, Ryan asked me, "Are you sure you still want to do this? Aren't you afraid of remembering them?" I said, "Precisely because of them. I have to." "Why?" "Because I can't let Daniel define what kindness means." He nodded. "That line is good. Should go on the homepage." "No." I said. "Why?" "Too much like a slogan." He laughed. I laughed too. That night, I returned home. The living room was quiet. The wall was white, the color I'd chosen. Mother's photo sat on the table. A potted green plant had just been placed on the windowsill. No suit of Daniel's. No hospital bills from Grace. No thank you cards from the charity gala. No one telling me whom I should fulfill. I sat on the sofa, watching the lights outside slowly come on. I used to believe being alone at home was terrifying. Now I know the real terror isn't being alone. The real terror is being with the wrong person and still convincing yourself it's love. The doorbell rang. I walked over. Ryan stood outside, holding the bottle of wine that had finally been uncorked. "Is now a good time?" he asked. I looked at him. Didn't answer right away. He didn't rush. That was the difference. The truly respectful person doesn't wrap waiting into sacrifice, nor does he wrap closeness into charity. I opened the door. "Come in." He stepped in, set the bottle on the table. We didn't kiss. We didn't hug. We just sat in the living room, sipped a small glass of wine, talked about work, the news, and the new apple pie from that bakery down the street. Ordinary, but ordinary was good. Ordinary meant no lies needed to be sustained, no stage lights required, no one had to disappear so another could become great. Late at night, Ryan left. I closed the door and returned to the living room. The trash had already been emptied. Daniel's letters were gone. His voice was gone too. I walked to the window, looked at my reflection. I was no longer the woman at the charity gala, holding a glass of wine, listening to others praise her husband's kindness. I wasn't the woman sitting in front of the bills, with only $482 left in her account, wondering if she was being too petty. I had survived. More accurately, I had reclaimed myself. They used to make me believe love was about endurance. Now I know love isn't about vanishing. Love should make me clearer. I kept staring at that photo until the screen went dark. 4 years ago, a year before I married Daniel. At that time, I didn't yet know Olivia. I didn't know Mark Wilson. I only knew Grace. More precisely, Grace had known me first. That winter, my mother had just passed away 3 months earlier. I met Grace in a hospital corridor. She was seated in a wheelchair, holding a payment slip. Her face pale, Daniel stood beside her, trying to communicate with the cashier. That day, I went to the hospital to handle my mother's final insurance documents. The corridor was cold. Grace's hand kept trembling. I heard Daniel say to the staff, "Can we wait 2 more days? I'll definitely make it up." The staff looked hesitant. I don't know why I walked over. Maybe because I had just lost my mother and couldn't bear to see another mother pushed to the brink by bills. I paid the fee for them, 1,600. Daniel looked at me then, eyes full of gratitude. Ava Miller. He looked at the name on the receipt. "I'll pay you back." He did. He came to my studio with flowers and coffee. Later, he asked me out to dinner. He listened to me talk about my mother. He said he had also known poverty and fear. He said the thing he could least tolerate was seeing a good person driven to desperation by money. Back then, I thought that was fate. Now I know it might have been a beginning. I enlarged the photo. Grace sat beside Daniel. She wore her favorite pearl gray cardigan. She smiled at the camera, her hand resting calmly on the folder. Her hand steady, no sign of illness at all. I suddenly felt sick. I saved the photo and sent it to Ryan. Then I called Evelyn Hart. Ryan had given me the number, but I'd never dialed it before. Now I did. The phone rang 3 times before being answered. Evelyn Hart. Her voice was calm. I said, "This is Ava Miller. Ryan Brooks gave me your number." She paused for a second. "Are you safe right now?" That wasn't a question a typical lawyer would ask first. I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm at home. My husband is upstairs." "Do you have children?" "No." "How much is in your joint accounts?" "Almost nothing." "Who owns the house?" "In my name. But I'm the one paying the mortgage." "Does your husband earn a high income?" $32,000 a month. "But he says he donates it all to charity." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then Evelyn said, "Come to my office tomorrow morning at 9. Bring all your bank statements, mortgage documents, tax returns, insurance policies, credit card bills, everything you can find. Don't tell your husband." I asked, "Is this just a divorce case?" Evelyn replied quickly, "No, it sounds like financial control. Asset transfer, possibly fraud." I looked toward the stairs. The study door was still closed. What if he finds out I'm investigating him? Don't argue with him. Don't threaten. Don't say you know anything. Your biggest mistake now would be letting him clean up evidence first. Someone else already warned me not to dig into this. Keep saving. Back up everything. Don't reply. My mother-in-law might be involved too. For the first time, Evelyn was silent for 2 seconds. "Then you can't afford to be soft." After I hung up, footsteps came from upstairs. Daniel came down. I quickly placed the phone face down on the table. He was in pajamas, and his face had regained its usual composure. That was Daniel. He could always pull himself together quickly, like a well-trained actor. "Who were you just talking to?" "My boss." "So late." "Client changed the plan." He looked at me. I looked back. Between us was a living room, and also 3 years of lies. Finally, he smiled slightly. "You've been working way too hard lately." I said, "Yeah, after all, there are so many bills." His smile faded. "We agreed not to talk like this anymore, didn't we? We've agreed on plenty of things." He stepped toward me, looking down. "Ava, you've been strange both last night and tonight." I looked up. "Are you saying I'm not normal?" He frowned. "I didn't say that, but that's what you mean." He sighed and sat beside me. "I'm just worried about you. You haven't been sleeping well. Your emotions are unstable. You're starting to doubt things with no real basis." I stared at him. There it was at last. Emotionally unstable, without basis. Had already begun building a new cage. I asked, "Daniel, do you love me?" He froze. Maybe he hadn't expected me to ask. He reached out to hold my hand. I didn't pull away. His hand was warm. I used to love these hands, the ones that tied my scarf, patted my back when I had nightmares, made soup for me on my mother's Memorial Day. Now I only wanted to know how many documents they'd signed, how much money they'd moved. "Of course I do," he said. "Then why are you leaving me to carry this household alone?" A flicker of irritation crossed his eyes. "Ava, we're circling back again. Because the problem has never gone away. I'm doing what's right." "Right for whom?" He let go of my hand. "You're not hearing me." I smiled. "I've been listening for 3 years." Daniel stood. "I don't want to argue. He always does this. He creates the problems. I bear them. Whenever I raise an issue, he says he doesn't want to argue." I watched him go upstairs. This time, I didn't follow, because I no longer needed his answers. The next morning at 9 o'clock, I sat in Evelyn Hart's office. She was in her 40s, dark-haired, wearing a gray suit, with no visible emotion. Her office was minimalist, no cozy decorations, just legal certificates and a row of filing cabinets. It calmed me. I didn't need someone to comfort me. I needed someone to drag Daniel into reality. Evelyn flipped through the documents I'd brought. Bank statements, foundation public reports, credit card bills, photos of parking tickets, videos of Daniel with Olivia, anonymous emails, photos from 4 years ago. She read quickly, marking key points on each page. After half an hour, she looked up. Your husband's strategy is clear. I asked. What strategy? He's funneling high income out of the household, shifting the burden of daily expenses onto you. You're paying the mortgage, living costs, medical bills. Externally, he projects a charitable image. Internally, he maintains moral authority. Whenever you complain, it makes you seem selfish. I stayed silent, because she was right. Evelyn continued. The house is in your name on the surface. It seems advantageous, but you're covering all the loan payments and upkeep. If your finances collapse, he could push to take over the property or make you sign another loan agreement. My chest tightened. He actually mentioned it. Said Grace might need surgery. Evelyn's expression turned cold. Under no circumstances sign anything. He hasn't handed me any documents yet. He will. She slid a bill toward me. Here Grace's medication cost. You pay over $2,000 monthly. What about her insurance? I froze. Daniel said it wasn't enough. Check it. What do you mean? In many financial control cases, medical expenses are a common excuse, especially involving mothers, children, emergencies, surgery. These words make people afraid to refuse. I stared at the medication bill. I had never doubted Grace's illness before. Questioning a patient seemed too cruel. But now I finally understand they've been exploiting my very hesitation all along. Evelyn asked again. Do you have premarital assets? I paused. My mother left behind an insurance payout, but I spent part of it before marriage. Paid off some debts. There's not much left. Who helped you handle it? Images of Grace flashed in my mind. Daniel and Grace helped me. They said I was too unstable to deal with complex documents back then. Evelyn put down her pen. Ava, go back and gather every document related to your mother's insurance money. My throat tightened. You suspect the money itself is compromised. I'm not suspecting anything yet. All I know is, in cases like this, every dollar needs to be re-examined. Before I left, Evelyn handed me a checklist. Tax returns, company's salary records, foundation receipts, Grace's medical insurance documents, mortgage records, and every contract Daniel ever asked me to sign. Anne, she added, you need to act just like your usual self, maybe even more compliant. I asked, why? The more confident he is, the more likely he is to make mistakes. I stuffed the documents into my bag. What if he's already suspicious of me? Evelyn looked at me, then let him think you're scared. That afternoon, I went to the bank to request my complete transaction history for the past 3 years. The teller asked if I needed a paper copy. I said yes, all of them. When the thick stack of documents was placed into the bag, I suddenly felt in my hands not paper but the autopsy report on my marriage. Back home, Grace was in the living room. She hadn't warned me in advance. She sat on the sofa, her handbag on her lap. Daniel wasn't there. I stood in the doorway, staring at her. What are you doing here? Grace smiled. I just came to check on you. I didn't take off my shoes. Did Daniel send you? Her smile didn't waver. Ava, you've been worrying him lately. I stepped into the living room and set my bag down behind the chair. You all seem so worried about me. Because you're not yourself anymore. I looked at her. What was I like before? Grace let out a soft sigh. You used to be gentle, attentive. You understood Daniel's kindness and were willing to support him. Now you're sharp-edged. I sat across from her. How long have you known Olivia? Her fingers twitched almost imperceptibly. Who? Olivia Blake, Daniel's charity partner. I've met her a few times. Just a few times. Of course. I opened my phone, pulled up a photo from 4 years ago, and placed it in front of her. Gracie's face finally changed. Not shock but anger. Because I shouldn't have that photo. She picked up the phone, glanced at it, then put it back down. Where did you get this? I didn't answer. Is it real? Grace looked at me. Ava, there are things you just don't understand. That sentence was like a key. It opened a door. She didn't deny it. The last bit of hope in me died. So you've known her for 4 years. Grace snapped her handbag shut. Daniel always wanted to do charitable work. I was just supporting him. I didn't know him. Hen. She looked at me, her eyes turning cold. What does that have to do with you? Then he married me. After that, his entire salary started getting funneled into that foundation. Then I started paying all your medical bills and household expenses. Grace stood up. You're not fit to talk today. Did you know from the beginning? She reached the door, then paused, her back to me. Ava, Daniel is a rare man. He shouldn't be burdened by every day. As his wife, you should help him. I stared at her back. Help Heimer support him. Grace turned around. Her maternal expression vanished completely. Do you think paying a few bills gives you the right to judge him? A few. I laughed. I've paid for 3 years. That's marriage, she said. Every woman makes sacrifices. So every man also has a child outside the marriage. The words fell, and the room went silent. Grace narrowed her eyes. She knew. She must have known. But she didn't ask me how I found out. She simply said, You'd better not say anything rash. I stood up. Why? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Because no one will believe you. Everyone knows what Daniel is like. And everyone can see you've been acting unstable lately. She said unstable slowly, or rather, deliberately, as if affixing a label directly to my forehead. I stared at her. Was that a word you all agreed on? Grace didn't answer. She grabbed her handbag and left. After the door closed, I stood there for a long time. Then I went down to the basement storage room and started searching through files. Mother's insurance documents, old tax returns, premarital bank records, house purchase papers. I sifted through them for 2 hours before uncovering an old cardboard box. Inside were TOS of my mother and some documents from before my wedding. As I found one bank receipt, my hand froze. It was a large transaction, 85,000. The sender account was my premarital one. The recipient wasn't a lender or a hospital. It was a company ID never seen before. Harbor Light Consulting LLC. The date: 2 weeks after Daniel and I got engaged. Note: financial consulting fee. I didn't remember this transaction at all. My temples began to throb. I kept searching. Then I found a signed authorization form. My name Ava Miller was written at the signature line. The handwriting looked like mine, but I knew it wasn't. Because on that day, I was in the ER. ID collapsed from chronic insomnia and low blood sugar. Daniel had taken me to the hospital. There's no way I could have been at the bank signing documents, holding the form. My fingers grew cold. Harbor Light Consulting, Hope Harbor Foundation. The names were too similar. Not a coincidence. I took a photo and sent it to Evelyn. She replied quickly, "Don't touch the originals. Put them back. Bring them to me tomorrow." 10 minutes later, Daniel returned. I had just placed the documents back in the box when he appeared in the storage room doorway. "What are you looking for?" I looked up. His face showed no smile. Old photo albums. His gaze swept over the box. Why suddenly going through old things? I was missing my mom. He stepped inside, crouched down, and picked up a photo. In it, my mother and I stood beneath a maple tree. She was smiling brightly. Daniel stared at it for a few seconds, his voice softening. "She'd want you to live more easily." I looked at him. "Really? Of course." I asked, "Daniel, what happened to my mother's insurance money? After all?" His hand paused just briefly. Then he put the photo back. Why suddenly asking this? I was sorting through things today and remembered. Back then, you weren't doing well. You had a lot of debts to deal with. Mom and I helped you clean up. Most of it went toward paying off debts and funeral expenses. There was $85,000. He slowly looked up. What, 85,000? I stared into his eyes. He was pretending, but he was pretending so well. If I hadn't seen the receipt, I might have believed him. I might have gotten it wrong. I said. Daniel stared at me. "You've been really strange lately." I smiled. "You've said that so many times already." He got up. "Ava, tomorrow we're meeting someone." "Who?" "A married couple financial advisor." I smirked internally. "Why? We can't go on like this. You're overly anxious about money, and you misinterpret my charitable work. I want a professional to help us communicate." "Have you arranged it?" "Yes." "When?" 3 o'clock this afternoon. I nodded. "All right." Daniel looked surprised. "You're willing to go?" "Yes." His expression softened. "Thanks. I know you still want to solve things." I looked at him. Of course, I really did want to solve things. Just not the way he imagined. The next afternoon at 3, we arrived at a private consultation room in an office building downtown. Daniel was unusually gentle on the way. He even bought me coffee, just like when we first started dating. He thought I was starting to give in. Inside the office sat a man in his 50s named Paul Reeves, marital financial advisor. He smiled warmly, with a tissue box on the table. This setup was obvious. They were preparing me to cry. Paul had Daniel speak first. Daniel sighed. "I love Ava, but lately she's become anxious about money. She started questioning my charitable donations and even misinterpreting my relationship with the foundation's director." Paul nodded, as if deeply understanding. "Ava, would you like to share your feelings?" I looked at him. "Before I speak, I'd like to confirm one thing." Paul smiled. "Of course. Did Daniel hire you, or was you recommended by Hope Harbor Foundation?" Paul's smile faltered slightly. Daniel turned to look at me. "Ava." I ignored him. I pulled out documents from my bag and placed them on the table. "This is Daniel's bank statement over the past 3 years. He transfers 32,000 monthly to the Hope Harbor Foundation." I pulled out another document. "This is the publicly available report from Hope Harbor. It only records 12,000 in donations from Daniel each month." Paul's expression changed. Daniel's face turned cold. I continued, producing a credit card statement. "These are the hotel stays, dinners, and jewelry purchases Daniel made using our joint credit card. Then, parking tickets. These are the parking records from his private residence on the night he claimed he was attending a charitable meeting." Finally, I pulled out my phone and played a video. A little girl's voice echoed in the room. "Daddy, don't go." Paul no longer smiled. Daniel lunged forward, trying to snatch my phone. I pulled it back in advance. Don't touch it. His gaze completely changed. Not the look of a husband, but that of a cornered enemy caught red-handed. Paul cleared his throat. Maybe we should take a moment to calm down. I looked at him. You're here to handle our marital finank. Yes. Aren't you? The problem is clear now. 720,000 is missing. You can begin your professional assessment. Daniel stood up. Ava, are you out of your mind? I stood too. You've been building up to that for ages. Now you finally said it. He lowered his voice. Do you even know what you're doing? Yes, you're destroying me. I looked at him. No, Daniel, you're just realizing for the first time that you can't hide behind your kindness anymore. He stepped closer, voice even lower. Remember, everyone has believed me these past years. I didn't retreat. He went on. No one will believe a wife who's gone mad over money, especially not when everyone knows she's jealous of the head of a charity organization. The moment the words left his mouth, the room fell silent. He realized he'd gone too far. I looked at him. My heart beat steady, because my phone was recording. It had been recording since the moment I walked in. I gathered my files. That's it for today. Daniel laughed coldly. Do you really think a few sheets of paper will win this battle? I said. I don't need to win today. I picked up my bag and walked out of the office. Daniel didn't follow. I knew he needed time to call, time to lie, time to decide how to make me shut up. That night, when I got home, Daniel wasn't there. I sat in the study and sent the recording to Evelyn. She replied in 3 words. Very useful. I thought the night would be quiet, but at 11 o'clock, Daniel returned. He didn't knock. He simply walked straight into the study. I was at my computer. When he saw the folder on the screen, his eyes went cold instantly. You're still digging. I closed the laptop. This is my computer. Who did you give it to? Daniel. Right now you sound just like someone terrified of the ledger being found. He moved toward me and grabbed my wrist forcefully. Who did you give it to? I looked at his hand. Let go. Answer me. Let go. He stared at me. In that moment, I felt something I'd never felt before, real fear. Not of him shouting, but of him finally realizing kindness no longer worked and that he was about to try another approach. After a few seconds, he released me. Then, suddenly, he seized my laptop, turned, and walked out. I lunged forward. Daniel, give my computer back. He ignored me. I grabbed his arm. He shook me off. My shoulder slammed into the doorframe. The pain knocked the breath from me, and black spots danced before my eyes. He paused, but he didn't apologize. You need rest, he said. You can't keep hurting yourself like this. I held onto the doorframe, watching as he took my laptop downstairs. The door opened. The door closed. He was gone. I slowly sank to the floor. My shoulder ached, but I didn't cry. Most of the files were already backed up. What had taken wasn't evidence. It was the last shred of his disguise. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I thought it was Daniel, but outside stood a deliveryman. He handed me a thick envelope. Legal documents. Requires signature. I signed. After closing the door, I opened the envelope. Inside was a petition. Daniel Carter had filed first before me. He accused me of being mentally unstable, of stalking, harassing, and defaming him for a prolonged period. He said I'd maliciously forged evidence out of jealousy toward Olivia Blake, head of the Hope Harbor Foundation, in an attempt to damage the charity's reputation. The final page was his request. He asked the court to restrict my access to his personal financial documents, and demanded that I undergo a psychological evaluation. I looked at Daniel's signature at the bottom of the document. The handwriting was smooth, steady, and elegant, just like him, always knowing how to make lies seem reasonable. At that moment, my phone vibrated. A photo arrived from an unknown number. It showed me from yesterday, at the bank, printing out my transaction history. I was standing at the counter, signing. Beneath it was a message. You're not investigating him. You're walking into the cage they've prepared for you.